Shalom, saints. This is your sister, Miriam Yasharahlas, and today we're going to be doing a reading from Esther as well as the apocryphal books of Esther, which are just the additions to Esther. So we're going to start at chapter 8. On that day did the king Yasharahlas give the house of Haman, the Jews, enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and that the things seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people, or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Yasharahlas said unto Esther, the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies, and rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing, and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Yasharahlas' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. Wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them both, little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Bless the Most High. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Yasharahlas, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. And the decree was given unto Shushan, the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Yasharahlas, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces, for this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter, and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men, and Parshinadath, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Aridiatha, and Parmastha, and Arisai, and Aradai, and Vegazath, the 10 sons of Haman, the sons of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid not their hand. On that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, The Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee, or what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Then said Esther, If it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan, to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and that Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also on the month of Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together, and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000, but they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same day they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things, and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king's Yasharahlas, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from a sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is, the lot to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he had advised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, in which had come unto them, the Jews ordained, and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days should be remembered, and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in there. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land, and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power, and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. Alright, so let's now go to the additions to Esther, starting from chapter 10, and you see we left off at verse 3. Now we're going to pick back up on the additions on verse 4. Now, because this is the apocryphal, the characters are still the same, but the wording and the naming of them is slightly different. Then Mordecai said, Elohim hath done these things, for I remember a dream which I saw concerning these matters, and nothing thereof hath failed. A little fountain became a river, and there was light, and the sun and much water. This river is Esther, whom the king married and made queen. And the 2 dragons are I and Ammon, and the nations were those that were assembled to destroy the names of the Jews. And my nation is this Yasharahlas, which cried to Elohim, and were saved. For Yahweh hath saved his people, and Yahweh hath delivered us from all those evils. And Elohim hath wrought signs and great wonders, which have not been done among the Gentiles. Therefore hath he made 2 lots, one for the people of Elohim, and another for all the Gentiles. And these 2 lots came at the hour, and time, and day of judgment, before Elohim among all nations. So Elohim remembered his people, and justified his inheritance. Therefore those days shall be unto them in the month of Adar, the 14th and 15th day of the same month, with an assembly and joy, and with gladness before Elohim, according to the generations, forever among his people. Chapter 11. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cleopatra, Dositheus, who said he was a priest and Levite, and Ptolemy his son, brought this epistle of Purim, which they said was the same, and that Lysimachus, the son of Ptolemy, that was in Jerusalem, had interpreted it. In the 2nd year, the reign of Artaxerxes the Great, in the 1st day of the month Nisan, Mordecai, the son of Jairus, the son of Semi, the son of Cissus, of the tribe of Benjamin, had a dream. Who was a Jew and dwelt in the city of Susa, a great man, being a servitor in the king's court. He was also one of the captives which Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, carried from Jerusalem with Jehoiachinus, king of Judea. And this was his dream. Behold, a noise of tumult with thunder and earthquakes and uproar in the land. And behold, the two great dragons came forth ready to fight, and their cry was great. And at their cry all nations were prepared to battle, that they might fight against the righteous people. And lo, a day of darkness and obscurity, tribulation and anguish, affliction and great uproar upon earth. And the whole righteous nation was troubled, fearing their own evils, and were ready to perish. Then they cried unto Elohim, and upon their cry, as it were from a little fountain, was made a great flood, even much water. The light and the sun rose up, and the lowly were exalted, and devoured the glorious. Now when Mordecai, who had seen this dream, and what Elohim hath determined to do, was awake, he bare this dream in mind, and until night by all means was desirous to know it. Chapter 12. And Mordecai took his rest in the court with Gabbatha and Thara, the two eunuchs of the king and keepers of the palace. And he heard their devices and searched out their purposes, and learned that they were about to lay hands upon Artaxerxes the king, and so he certified the king of them. Then the king examined the two eunuchs, and after that they had confessed it, they were strangled. And the king made a record of these things, and Mordecai also wrote thereof. So the king commanded Mordecai to serve in the court, and for this he rewarded him. Howbeit Amon the son of Amadatthus, the Agagite, who was in great honor with the king, sought to molest Mordecai and his people because of the two eunuchs of the king. Chapter 13. The copy of the letters was this: The great king Artaxerxes writeth these things to the princes and governors that are under him from India unto Ethiopia, in 107 and 20th provinces. After that I became lord over many nations, and had dominion over the whole world, not lifted up with presumption of my authority, but carrying myself always with equity and mildness. I purposed to settle my subjects continually in a quiet life, and making my kingdom peaceable and open for passage to the utmost cost, to renew peace, which is desired of all men. Now when I asked my counselors how this might be brought to pass, Amon, that excelled in wisdom among us, and was approved for his constant goodwill and steadfast fidelity, and had the honor of the second place in the kingdom, declared unto us that in all nations throughout the world there were scattered a certain malicious people that had laws contrary to all nations, and continued to despise the commandments of kings, so as the uniting of our kingdoms honorably intended by us cannot go forward. Seeing then we understand that this people alone is continually in opposition unto all men, differing in the strange manner of their laws, and evil affected to our state, working all the mischief they can, that our kingdom may not be firmly established. Therefore have we commanded that all they that are signified in writing unto you by Amon, who is ordained over the affairs, and is next unto us, shall all, with their wives and children, be utterly destroyed by the sword of their enemies, without all mercy and pity, the 14th day of the 12th month of Adar, this present year. That they who of old and now also are malicious may one day with great violence go into the grave, and so ever hereafter cause our affairs to be well settled and without trouble. Then Mordecai thought upon all the works of Yahweh, and made his prayer unto him, saying, O Yahweh, Yahweh, the King Almighty, for the whole world is in thy power, and if thou hast appointed to save Yasharahlas, there is no man that can gainsay thee. For thou hast made heaven and earth, and all the wondrous things under the heaven. Thou art Lord of all things, and there is no man that can resist thee, which are Yahweh. Thou knowest all things, and thou knowest, Yahweh, that it was neither in contempt nor pride, nor for any desire of glory, that I did not bow down to proud Amon. For I could have been content with goodwill for the salvation of Yasharahlas, to kiss the soles of his feet. But I did this, that I might not prefer the glory of man above the glory of Elohim. Neither will I worship any but thee, O Elohim, neither will I do it in pride. And now, O Yahweh Elohim, and King, spare thy people, for their eyes are open us to bring us to naught. Yea, they desire to destroy the inheritance that hath been thine from the beginning. Despise not the portion which thou hast delivered out of Egypt for thine own self. Hear my prayer, and be merciful unto thine inheritance. Turn our sorrow into joy, that we may live, O Yahweh, and praise thy name, and destroy not the mouths of them that praise thee, O Yahweh. All Yasharahlas in like manner cried most earnestly unto Yahweh, because their death was before their eyes. Chapter 14. Queen Esther, also being in fear of death, resorted unto Yahweh, and laid away her glorious apparel, and put on garments of anguish and mourning, and instead of precious ointments, she covered her head with ashes and dung, and she humbled her body greatly, and all the places of her joy she filled with her torn hair. And she prayed unto Yahweh Elohim of Yasharahlas, saying, O my Yahweh, thou only art our King. Help me, desolate woman, which have no helper but thee. For my danger is in mine hand. From my youth up, I have heard in the tribe of my family that thou, O Yahweh, tookest Yasharahlas from among all people, and our fathers from all their predecessors, for perpetual inheritance, and thou hast performed whatsoever thou didst promise them. And now we have sinned before thee. Therefore hast thou given us into the hands of our enemies, because we worship their gods, O Yahweh, thou art righteous. Nevertheless, it satisfieth them not that we are in bitter captivity, but they have stricken hands with their idols, that they will abolish the thing that thou with thy mouth hast ordained, and destroy thy inheritance, and stop the mouth of them that praise thee, and quench the glory of thy house and of thine altar, and open the mouths of the heathen, to set forth the praises of the idols, and to magnify a fleshly king forever. O Yahweh, give not thy scepter unto them that be nothing, and let them not laugh at our fall, but turn their device upon themselves, and make him an example that hath begun this against us. Remember, O Yahweh, make thyself known in time of our affliction, and give me boldness, O King of the nations, and Yahweh of all power. Give me eloquent speech in my mouth before the lion. Turn his heart to hate him that fighteth against us, that there may be an end of him, and of all that are like-minded to him. But deliver us with thine hand, and help me that am desolate, and which have no other help but thee. Thou knowest all things, O Yahweh. Thou knowest that I hate the glory of the unrighteous, and abhor the bed of the uncircumcised, and of all the heathen. Thou knowest my necessity, for I abhor the sigh of my high estate, which is upon my head in the days wherein I showed myself, and that I abhor it as a minstrel's rag, and that I wear it not when I am private by myself. And that thine handmaid hath not eaten at Ammon's table, and that I have not greatly esteemed the king's feast, nor drunk the wine of the drink of offerings. Neither hath thine handmaid any joy since the day that I was brought hither to this present, but in thee, O Yahweh Elohim of Abraham. O thy mighty Elohim, above all, hear the voice of the forlorn, and deliver us out of the hands of the mischievous, and deliver me out of my fear. Chapter 15. And upon the third day, when she had ended her prayers, she laid away her mourning garments, and put on her glorious apparel. And being gloriously adorned, after she had called upon Elohim, who is the beholder and Savior of all things, she took 2 maids with her. And upon the one she leaned, as carrying herself daintily, and the other followed, bearing up her train. And she was ready through the perfection of her beauty, and her countenance was cheerful and very amiable. but her heart was in anguish for fear. Then, having passed through all the doors, she stood before the king, who sat upon his royal throne, and was clothed with all his robes of majesty, all glittering with gold and precious stones, and he was very dreadful. Then, lifting up his countenance that shone with majesty, he looked very fiercely upon her, and the queen fell down, and was pale, and fainted, and bowed herself upon the head of the maid that went before her. Then Elohim changed the spirit of the king into mildness, who in a fear leaped from his throne, and took her in his arms, till she came to herself again, and comforted her with loving words, and said unto her, Esther, what is the matter? I am thy brother, be of good cheer. Thou shalt not die, though our commandment be general. Come near. And so he held up his golden scepter, and laid it upon her neck, and embraced her, and said, Speak unto me. Then said she unto him, I saw thee, my lord, as an angel of Elohim, and my heart was troubled for fear of thy majesty. For wonderful art thou, Lord, and thy countenance is full of grace. And she was speaking, and as she was speaking, she fell down for faintness. Then the king was troubled, and all his servants comforted her. Chapter 16. The great king Artaxerxes unto the prince and governors of 170 provinces from India unto Ethiopia, unto all our faithful subjects, greeting. Many the more often they are honored with the great bounty of their gracious princes, the more proud they are waxen, and endeavor to hurt not our subjects only, but not being able to bear abundance, do take in hand to practice also against those that do them good, and to take not only thankfulness away from among men, but also lift it up with the glorious words of lewd persons that were never good. They think to escape the justice of Elohim, that seeth all things and hateth evil. Oftentimes also fair speech of those that are put in trust to manage their friends' affair hath caused many that are in authority to be partakers of innocent blood, and hath enwrapped them in remediless calamities, beguiling with the falsehood and deceit of their lewd disposition the innocency and goodness of princes. Now ye may see this, as we have declared, not so much by ancient histories, as ye may if ye search what hath been wickedly done of late through the pestilence behavior of them that are unworthily placed in authority. And we must take care for the time to come, that our kingdom may be quiet and peaceable for all men, both by changing our purposes, and always judging things that are evident with more equal proceeding. For Ammon, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us, had so far forth obtained the favor that we show toward every nation, as that he was called our father, and was continually honored of all the next persons unto the kingdom, unto the king. But he, not bearing his great dignity, went about to deprive us of our kingdom and life, having by manifold and cunning deceits sought of us to destruction, as well of Mordecaius, who saved our life, and continually procured our good, as also of blameless Esther, partaker of our kingdom with their whole nation. For by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends, to have translated the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. But we find that the Jews, whom this wicked wretch hath delivered to utter destruction, are no evildoers, but live by most just laws, and that they, being children of the Most High, and the most mighty living Elohim, who hath ordered the kingdom, both unto us and to our progenitors, in the most excellent manner. Wherefore ye shall do well not to put in execution the letters sent unto you by Ammon, the son of Amadatha. For he, for he that was the worker of these things is hanged at the gates of Susa with all his family. Elohim, who ruleth all things, speedily rendering vengeance to him according to his deserts. Therefore ye shall publish the copy of this letter in all places, that the Jews may freely live after their own laws. And ye shall aid them, that even the same day, being the 13th day of the 12th month Adar, they may be avenged on them, who in the time of their affliction shall set upon them. For Almighty Elohim hath turned to joy unto them the day, wherein the chosen people should have perished. Ye shall therefore among your solemn feasts keep it an high day with all feasting, that both now and hereafter there may be safety to us and the well-affected Persians, but to those which do conspire against us a memorial of destruction. Therefore every city and country whatsoever which shall not do according to these things shall be destroyed without mercy with fire and sword, and shall be made not only unpassable for men, but also most hateful to wild beasts and fowls forever. Praise the Most High. Babylon has fallen, y'all. Babylon has fallen. All right. Hope that was edifying to y'all out there, especially if you haven't read the additions to Esther. I know it's in the KJV 1611, the Apocrypha. Nonetheless, Shalom, and Most High willing, until next time, family. Love you. Bye.